What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? Today we're going to be looking at more of the Jackson Wheat interview that we had. Obviously I'm not having to cut out a lot of this because both of us have really great chemistry going on. So I hope that you do enjoy it. Some of the topics that we cover are like worst creationist arguments and whether or not Ken Ham actually believes the shit that he spouts. We also discuss evolution as a religion and why that doesn't make sense. And finally, between Jackson and I, we kind of discuss what, like, the creationist kinds are. We try to figure it out from, I guess, an outsider's perspective, what they're actually trying to say. So, if you're interested in this, please stay tuned. No, yeah, I agree. Now, Bill Nye thinks that teaching kids like creationism as like a quote unquote theory that's on par with evolution is tantamount to like child abuse. I'm kind of curious. Do you share that opinion, or do you think that it's a bit more nuanced?
I'm not so sure I'd go that far. I do think that telling children that, you know, if you don't convert people, they end up suffering forever as child abuse. I happen to know people who have been through that. And so, I don't know if teaching creationism is in and of itself child abuse, but teaching that people are tortured forever, I think is, and that it's your fault that they're torturing forever. I do think that is child abuse. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that the whole creationism part is a bit nuanced, and it's not necessarily child abuse, but I think that it can be abusive, especially if you pair it with the whole concept of hell. And so kind of curious that we, since we mentioned Nye, what was there any like major argument in that debate that just made you face palm yourself like just really hard, or was it just collectively bad all around?
Well, one thing that stuck with me after it was the question that I think probably has stuck with everyone since then. The moderator asks, he poses the question to both of them, what, if anything, would change your mind? And Bill Nye says, well, just give me some evidence that, radiometric decay is wrong, the fossil record's wrong, genetics is wrong, whatever. Just give me some evidence and that will change our minds. Ken Ham's like, nothing. I'm a Christian, and no one can tell me the Bible is wrong. And so, I just thought, wow, that is so... It's honest, but it's intellectually dishonest,
Yeah.
He truly believes that nothing will ever convince him, which I don't know. They say that in their statement of faith that like no apparent or perceived evidence against the Bible can be considered real, but I know some of his creationists already do accept evolution. So I don't know. He might actually accept evolution, but he's making a lot of money off of it, so that might be a factor.
I don't know. Maybe one would hope that he's not being as obtuse as he is without, I don't know, doing it for money.
Yeah. Andrew Snelling. You know Andrew Snelling?
Yeah, the name sounds familiar. Is he a creation scientist?
Yeah, he's a geologist, and he actually studied under Stephen Jay Gould, I think it is, or that might have been Kurt Wise. I think that was Kurt Wise. And so, well, both of them. Okay, so the story for Kurt Wise was that he like took the Bible and took what he knew about geology, and so he like cut everything out of the Bible that didn't fit with what we know about science, and he was left with like nothing in the Bible, something like that, just a few pages. And so the story goes. And then he decided, I can keep the science or I can keep my faith. And so he gave up the science. Andrew Snelling is another geologist. Kurt Wise and Snelling are both geologists. And Snelling has published in regular papers, he has published articles because I think he works in Australia, or he has worked in Australia. And he's like, okay, this formation is such and such billion years old. So he publishes this strata is like a billion years old in a paper, in a technical paper. But then he comes back to Answers in Genesis and says, oh no, this is flood. This is a flood deposit. It's not billions of years old because radiometric dating is false and all that stuff. And then you also have Todd Wood, who's a biologist, I think. He has have you heard of his blog?
No.
Yeah, Todd Wood had a blog, or has a blog, where he's like, yeah, there's all this evidence for evolution, but I don't believe it because I'm a Christian.
What?
Yeah, that's I bet I can find it for you. I think I do have the link, but yeah, that was something he said a while back. He's like, students of creationism, yes, there's evidence for evolution, but our faith is more important, so we shouldn't believe it.
That's rather ridiculous. Like to throw out good science for your faith. I mean, the thing that I like about science and the scientific method in general is that it allows itself to change, like the information, not the actual method, but the information can change with new information. But it's like with the Bible, it's like, nope, this is it. This is all.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now, well, one thing that Ken Ham likes to put out there is that evolution is a religion. So I'm kind of wondering, what are your thoughts on evolution, the religion?
I think the idea that evolution is a religion is just so absolutely silly. It's so wrong for a number of reasons. I mean, for one thing, no part of evolution qualifies as religion. We don't have days of evolution worship. There's no deity of evolution. We also don't worship the process itself because that'd be weird. It's almost like he asserts that a reverence for the process is religious, as though you can't be, reverent of something without it being a religion for whatever reason. It's just so bad and so wrong. It's just this process that happens because organisms reproduce and they compete in environments with a finite amount of resources and space. And so it's just to say that's a religion is laughable, Well,
I don't know. I mean, you haven't sacrificed cats in order to explain evolution to people. I mean, draw your little pentagram, sacrifice a cat, and then you dance around naked, and then you teach class.
Does that happen often?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I haven't been to college in a while. It didn't happen when I was there, but apparently that's what takes place now.
Well, I'm clearly not taking the right classes. I need to be in those classes.
Yeah. But no, I'm kind of curious, like, it doesn't have to be like anything that Ken Ham pushes, but what's the worst, like, argument against evolution that you can think of?
Oh, that's a tough one. There are just so many bad ones out there. It's hard to say what is. I don't. Well, okay. Well, one of the worst ones I've ever heard of. One of the worst ones I ever heard, and the reason I made a video recently was, my most recent video was, creationists don't understand reproduction. They don't understand why it's important. And so it's weird that you have to explain reproduction. For me, I have to explain it to guys who are older than me why reproduction is a necessary part of evolution, because they all analogize evolution with cars or airplanes or skateboards or whatever. And it's like, okay, cars don't undergo meiosis. They don't have gametes. They don't vary in allele frequencies over time. They don't do any of these things. And so it's annoying, for me at least, to hear people say that, that a car is like a good analogy for evolution. Although Although I do have to say, the whole idea of a kind, that there are distinct kinds that were created, makes me rant to no end. As someone who deals a lot with phylogenetics, that just drives me insane, the idea of kinds, because you can push the definition just out to be so wide. It's really funny with the way that they describe it, because they can't consistently describe it. Some, like Kent Hovind, will say, "Oh, it's just, the reproductive boundary of a species." So okay, so it's a species. I think Georgia Purdom once said that in an article she wrote too. John Woodmorapp said in his book Noah's Ark: A Feasibility Study that kind is about the level of genus. Ken Ham said that it's kind is a family and an order at the same time. Georgia Purdom also said in an interview that I have on one of my videos that there's a bird kind and a dinosaur kind. So there's one kind for all birds and one kind for all dinosaurs. And so it's like, why not just say, one kind is a phylum or a kingdom or a domain? There's no end. It doesn't ever stop.
Well, yeah. The way I've always described their idea of a kind is, hey, that looks different to me. Like that seems to be like a visual thing, like, because for instance, you got ring species. Ring species, I mean, once they get on or they meet back up on the other side, they can't mate because they're so genetically different. But yet they're the same kind. But it also violates their whole, well, it's they can't reproduce kind of thing. Like it's very confusing, like you said.
Yeah, what's funny, it's actually funny that you say that. They say it's basically what it looks like, because Georgia Purdom wrote an article, or co-authored an article for Answers in Genesis, where they're determining the kinds, or what a kind is. And one of the methods they use is called cognitum, which they describe as, if it looks like it's a different kind, it probably is.
Okay, look, coming from North Alabama, okay, that's basically your uncle being like, well, you can eyeball that shit.
Exactly, which we hear all the time.
Actually, the first house I bought, I swear, the entire house, like door frames everywhere, the cabinets, they eyeballed that motherfucker the entire time because nothing was straight or aligned or anything. And I'm so glad to be out of that house now. But still, it always got me, because like I'd go to shut the door and it's like the slit at the bottom of the door would slowly creep up, and to the right, and I'd be like, God damn it.
Yeah, that is pretty awful. But that's pretty much, that's how they claim to, or that's at least one method by which they claim to determine kinds, because they've got this really funny hang up about genetics. All this field of research that we've been doing for the past 100 years or so, and they're like, genetics, funny. Because I think part of the reason is that they know genetics does not work for them. If you compare the homologous sequences of these different chromosomes among different species, or homologous segments of chromosome among different species, then you realize, hey, wait a minute, these guys are very similar in their chromosomes, and there's really not an argument for that from creationists other than, well, that's just the way God made them, because all they have are these ad hoc rationalizations. It's like, oh, hey, that's interesting. Wow, okay, well, neat. Why are there all these different organisms on Earth? Well, God likes biodiversity for some reason, I guess. It's like, well, what the heck? Why did God create all these planets where you're telling me nothing else is supposed to live out there? Oh, God likes a full universe of rocks. It's like, what the? Why? Why does any of this matter? And they have no explanation for it. Where on our side, we can use homologies to make predictions, to make verifiable predictions about the fossil record, about what we should see genetically. We looked at our genome, and we saw, hey, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and we looked at the other great ape genomes, and we saw, hey, they have 24 pairs of chromosomes. What happened to that extra pair? Well, we should still have it because we can't just lose a whole pair of chromosomes. That would be lethal. And so geneticists predicted that it should still be in our genome. And surely enough, it is. It fused with another pair of chromosomes, which is chromosome 2. And so you've got in the middle of one of the little arms, you've got like these this vestigial telomeres. The telomeres are the ends of the chromosome. And so you've got the sequence that specifies, or that it denotes the telomere in the middle of the arm. Well, why the heck would that be there unless these two chromosomes actually ran into each other? That is a verifiable prediction that was made based on common ancestry. Creationists have nothing like that because, according to them, we're created separately from apes, even though we're more closely related to chimps are than chimps are to other apes, which it's like, good luck with explaining that one away. You've got the furcula, the little wishbone, that was predicted in dinosaurs by I think Heilman was the name of the guy back in the early 1900s or late 1800s, one of those. But he predicted that there should be wishbones in dinosaurs because birds have them. If birds are actually descended from dinosaurs, then we should find dinosaurs with them. Surely enough, a number of years later, we did. We found Segnosaurus has it, as well as Allosaurs and all these other guys. They all have it, just like we expected. And then numerous fossils have been predicted, like Tiktaalik is one of the most famous ones, probably the most famous of the predicted fossils. There's also Microraptor was predicted. Diarthrognathes is a mammal-like reptile that was predicted based on how we understand, or what was theoretical at the time for how reptiles should have evolved into mammals and things like that. And so there's also a little ant called Sphecomerma that was predicted, as well as Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx was actually, he might be the most famous one because he was kind of the first prediction made by common ancestry by Charles Darwin. It was only 2 years after Origin of Species that they found Archaeopteryx. And so we can make all these predictions based on how we think evolution should have happened. And creationists are just putting out fires because they're not, or they're trying to put out fires because they don't have anything like this. They have no method by which they can make predictions. Their models theoretically make predictions, because if you're saying that there was this massive speciation event in like every lineage of organisms following Noah's Ark, well, we should be able to see that. We should be able to see the remnants of this massive speciation event. There's nothing. There's no. We should see like a consistent bottleneck in all species leading to like 4,000 years ago. There's nothing like that. So it's not that their models don't make predictions; it's that they do, and they've been falsified where they can be falsified. Other places where they make predictions and they aren't falsifiable, well, we can't really do anything about that. Like, hey, God did this, well, great. How can we prove that? But yeah, so, or heck, we couldn't even have a flood of global proportions because it would have, the amount of water necessary would have generated so much heat that it would have vaporized the ark and everything on it. So yeah, it's that is a good indicator of who's on the correct side of these issues, It's the side that not only has the data, but they are also able to make testable predictions. And when those predictions are confirmed, well, that doesn't help creationists. Ever.
No, science never helps them at all.
Yeah, they have to go back and kind of rewrite history like, oh, hey, this was based on a creationist principle. No, it wasn't.